welcome to my home again, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me.
She was here a couple weeks ago for her show. She's got a digital formatted newscast that she's doing.
Yes.
And highlighted my mom and I for Mother's Day, so I can't wait to see that.
Yes.
And I'll put that eventually in the link as well. But so here we are. So here's the deal. Yes, she and I were in the same business, not at the same TV station for years, and we probably ran into each other here and there, but never knew each other, but got to know each other through Facebook and having the similarity of Alzheimer's in our family.
Yes.
So now that she's really active with her new show, we had a conversation, and I was like, "You got to come back." and we got to talk about this. So, tell us your story with your mom and Alzheimer's.
Okay, so my sweet mom, her name is Lilia. She was born and raised in Chile, beautiful beach city called La Serena. And my dad was from South Dakota. So that's why I'm either the Chilean from South Dakota or the South Dakotan from Chile. I don't know what people want to say, but that's where Munoz comes from. That is my mom's name. And gosh, we always give them such a hard time because Chile is so gorgeous. You know, everywhere you go, you have mountains on one side, beach on the other. And we always say, how did you guys leave this? So my dad was a professional violinist and got his master's in music at the University of Kentucky in Louisville. A friend said, you should think about the Peace Corps. He joined the Peace Corps, and I love that his peacekeeping mission was to teach at a music conservatory in La Serena, Chile. And my mother was taking piano and ballet at that conservatory, and that's where they met. So they marry in Chile, and of course, it was 1969. The world history buffs out there will know the government was overthrown by the military in 71. Incredibly unstable place. Everything we see with Ukraine right now, I think, very similar to Chile at the time. So, of course, Mom thinks, America sounds great. Let's go to America. Well, I don't know that she was thinking South Dakota. It was January. It was 29 below zero actual temp. She didn't speak a word of English, and she said she cried for 6 months straight.
Oh.
So,
Bless her.
well, I said, you must have really loved my dad to, lift up and move like that. But, yeah, that would have been in 71. They raised 3 girls. I'm the youngest of 3. And gosh, we lost my dad to cancer 16 years ago. And my mother really struggled with that. And actually, eventually, 5 years later, dated another man that also died of a heart attack suddenly. She struggled with that immensely.
Lots of grief.
Lots of grief. And I share that because I think that made this side very difficult because we knew she was dealing with grief, undiagnosed depression. And just another element that I share because I am completely anti-family secrets. We had family secrets growing up. Everybody does. And I believe that this contributed to these issues. I try to make this as clear as possible. I was 14 when we were in Chile, and my mom sat us down on the beach and said, my suspicions have been confirmed. I hired a private investigator, and my mother is not my mother. My oldest sister is my mother. So in the 40s, when you were 21 and pregnant, and not married, that just didn't happen. And you could be sick for 2-3 months. And so they just said Raquel was sick. And when the baby was born, baby was sibling number 6 and not in fact Raquel's. And that baby was my mom. And she always suspected it, didn't know till later, and yet lived with this abandonment issues is kind of what we have determined them. Raquel died 3 years ago and died not knowing that my mother knew. And it always hurt her. So when my dad died, and then Raquel abandonment issues from her own mother, there were definitely undiagnosed depression, we believe, grief that had not been handled. So we believe she was not healthy emotionally or mentally. And I share that just because I think that in and of itself is very, very important. Because when there were signs and symptoms of dementia, Alzheimer's, we didn't recognize it for a long time. And I think we thought because, she's struggling with all these other things.
And she was young.
She was young.
Considered young.
Now we look back and go, it started when she was 68.
And so that's around the younger onset that they talk about. So which you can be very normal. You can work a job. And
she was still working full time. She had not left. She worked at the high school, helped with ESL, second language, helped in the library, kind of helped as a paraprofessional wherever they needed her. and still worked through that 68th year. And after we kind of went public and shared, what was going on, lots of teachers and coworkers of hers came and go, yeah, I had this one incident. I thought it was strange, but they didn't feel comfortable saying something because it almost feels like it's cutting her down. And while I get that, we all kind of go, I wish someone would have said more. It would have maybe helped us on this path. Because unfortunately, it did not go well. It was very difficult. She is a spunky, we call it the Chilean temper, not one to confront easily. My dad was the peacekeeper and the mild and the patient, and my mom was the fireball. And so she actually helped care for my dad's parents, and my grandma on his side had Alzheimer's, but not till 87 and passed away at 89. So we had talked about it. She was very aware of this. She kind of knew what this was like, and we kind of thought it wouldn't go so poorly because of that. But once the brain is under attack, none of that matters. I mean, we would bring it up. We kind of laugh about it now. In the early stages, we remember saying, oh, you have a doctor's appointment. You need to ask about some memory issues. And she agreed eventually. And then when she got home and we said, how did it go? Did you ask about your memory? She goes, oh, I forgot. And we kind of laugh. Well, of course, they're not going to remember to ask about memory issues because they have memory issues.
Or if they did, they're going to not do it.
No.
That's why, it was so tricky with my mom taking her and then trying to figure out a way to ask them to begin that process because, she would just go, nothing's wrong with my memory, Theba.
Yes.
So we had to be very strategic, and I would ask her, the nurse, when I went to the restroom, hey, can you, because of her age, will you start that typical, tell them it's typical.
Yes.
It is such a
It is so hard.
That's the hardest starting point.
She'd get so mad.
Oh.
And if you haven't been through that, the whole just make them. Just make them take the test. Just make them go. It's not possible. They're an adult. They make decisions for themselves. She still drives. She still works. It's not as easy as it might just sound. And so we were at the point where we kind of knew we were going to need an incident. And I hate that. But there's not other options. If she wouldn't get tested, she wouldn't get diagnosed. We couldn't even get medication. We couldn't get anything because she would deny. So there was a small incident. She is still in South Dakota. Both of my sisters are there. I'm the only one that's not there. And she hit a mailbox with her car. We are so thankful it's a mailbox and not a child or a human. And of course, she wanted to hide all of it. And we don't know any of this till later. But what we do know is that we couldn't find her one day. She lived still on her own in Yankton, South Dakota. And if I remember correctly, I remember the call said, there's a strange vehicle in the garage. She is nowhere to be found. And a body shop just called us to say they have her car. So
are you living here?
I'm here. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I'm just communicating with my sisters.
And a sister is there, or
both sisters are there.
Okay.
And it's really cool, and the three of us get along great, and that's been a blessing. They kind of, along the way, decided one was going to take care regarding medical concerns, and the other would take care regarding paperwork, financial, anything like that. And it had worked very well. So I can't remember if we had power of attorney at this point or not, because we had done that, with my dad, of course, 16 years before. But so thankfully, my brother-in-law, who's also there, saw her walking one of the main strips, and it's a small town, and we pick her up, and we eventually find out she had taken the car to the body shop. They gave her a temporary, but she couldn't figure out, the temporary car has a push it in before you turn the key type scenario, and she couldn't figure that out. So she started walking to the body shop to try to get her car back.
Which is difficult for anyone at that age who does not have Alzheimer's.
Exactly. Let alone someone who the brain's just not quite working. So, once that happened, I think we felt a little bit better about going, okay, we need to get you help. We need to get this figured out. However, this is now 2 years ago, and I do a lot of different things, but one of the things I do is teach dance at a local dance studio in Conway, Red Curtain Theater. And we don't do typical dance recitals. We do a theatrical presentation because we're a theater. And they had decided that year to do the story of my parents' love, the story of my parents meeting in Chile, and the whole story was told through dance. And I wanted her here for that. It meant so much for me to have her here for that. So personally, along all this, the day before I'm supposed to go pick up my mom in South Dakota, my now 13-year-old, 10 at the time, broke her leg on a playground. So we're in the hospital, we're getting that figured out. We actually do go to South Dakota, we do pick her up. So even though we had an incident, this was kind of already planned, and so we decided to do this. And I was going to have her here for 3 weeks. My main goal was to give my sisters a break.
Yeah.
They do this in and out every day. I don't. I'm not there, and that's hard on me. So I wanted to help, and I thought if I want her here for that performance, I just want her here for 3 weeks. I'm going to take care of her for 3 weeks. So we actually go, we actually get out. It wasn't easy. She tried escaping from the hotel. We got here fine eventually. She was just very angry. And things went okay the first week, couple of moments. She enjoyed the performance because at this point she can remember Chile really well. So she's been in America 40 years. Can't remember yesterday, can't remember last week, but she could remember growing up in Chile.
I know.
And I mean, at this point, she still knew who we were. She doesn't anymore, but at the time she did. But so confused. And if she could talk about growing up in Chile and young, elementary, she could share. And most of the stories were correct. We remember a lot of the stories. Most of them were pretty accurate. So that's kind of how I kept her going. And because the dance performance was about that time, she did okay. She did okay.
Now, at this point, when she's here for those 3 weeks,
Yeah.
has she been diagnosed with Alzheimer's
That's
yet?
a great question. No. I had to think.
But you knew that
we knew.
with your sisters, something's going on. So with her here, you were able to really witness a decline.
Yes, that's exactly right. And even though we knew things were not right, she had not been diagnosed because, you know, there's usually either an MRI or a scan, or she had done a memory test, which they said was atypical, and she had failed that test. But she wouldn't take medicine. And so she was kind of just free for all, if you will. I mean, she was just living in that. We knew, and there was nothing we could do. So after the performance went well, incredibly emotional. My poor daughter in her broken leg cast couldn't be in it. But what I tried to tell her was, how often will you be able to have the chance to watch a production about your grandparents and sit with your grandmother? And so we tried to make that the pro. And she got to get on stage and bow at the end in her cast. So after that, it was Memorial Day. That was the weekend after the show. We had gone shopping. She had bought some clothes, and there was a bad day. And I was doing Sydney's hair in the bathroom, and she starts saying, "Where's my money?" Now, she had been spending money for 2 weeks, but didn't remember any of that. And it was an accusation toward me. I step out of the bathroom, and she winds up and slaps my face as hard as she could. I've never been.
Do you think
slapped.
at that point, does she know it's you?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. My biggest concern then is I didn't want Sydney to see that. I closed the door so she can't. My husband hears me scream, comes over, and it's so crazy to me that she was a strong little woman. She is a strong little woman. We tussled, and Dave had to break us up. I was sore the next day, so I was actually engaged, not knowing what she was going to do next. Yeah. It was awful, you know. I mean, it had bad moments, but it had never been that bad. I call my sisters right away, and I'm in tears. And we decide the best thing is for her to get back to South Dakota, get back home. We go through lots of different scenarios. I was going to drive to Omaha. That's a 9-hour drive. Get a friend to pick her up there and go further the 3 hours left. We went back and forth. Because of availability and time, we decided to get her on a plane. And with that, they do, like when children travel, they can get door-to-door help to make sure that she gets from portal to portal. You know, and that's hard because she's not a child, but like a child. And man, there was this anger in her. And so much so, a couple of the examples. One, now she did not have a good relationship with God. She was mad at God since my dad died. But she wrote in marker on my desk in our extra bedroom, "God knows what you are doing." She took a framed photo of the three of us out of the frame and tore my face to pieces, just my face. and then was looking through her purse for a credit card and found my business card in hers, took it out, stomped on it with her foot, and put it back and kept going. So there was this rage, specifically against me. So
well, that you think.
Well, at the time, problem. Whoever I was to her, I don't know.
Or even if you're her daughter, that she has no idea why she's at rage.
No.
And
but I'm very thankful for my husband. He became the peacekeeper, which is so funny because they didn't get along for years early on in the relationship, and now he was her saving grace. He took her to the airport. He held her hand. He made sure that the guest services or whatever they use in the airport had her, and it was fine. And then a friend picked her up from the airport, and she got home safely. She was very kind and gracious to him, and very thankful to him, which I'm very, very appreciative of. She got home, and my sisters decided to give 24 hours, not knowing exactly what was going to happen next. They made sure she was okay and said hi and welcome home. And the next day, my sister got a call from the church where they go to, and they said, your mom is hiding at the neighbor's house because her daughters want to kill her.
Yeah.
But yet, looking back, we are thankful that God gave us that moment because it allowed us to say, this is enough. If she's going to hit me, she may hit a neighbor. She is what we would consider dangerous to herself or others. We called police and ambulance.
Yeah.
And as hard as that was, it was such a relief because we didn't know if she was going to hurt others, hurt herself. So ambulance comes and they take her to the Department of Human Services in Yankton. It's always called north of town. Everybody knows what that is. And they take her there and they take such good care of her. And immediately they tested her for a UTI. And I don't know if you've seen and heard the connections.
Yeah, sure.
The funny thing is I knew about this from a friend of mine that a UTI in someone who has Alzheimer dementia can cause hallucinations, can cause extreme rage. I'd heard of it and it didn't even cross my mind because we hadn't really been talking about Alzheimer's dementia officially.
It's usually with older people.
Yes.
Like your mom's still in her 60s during the story, right?
She's 69.
Late 70s and 80s is when UTIs are more common. So she had a UTI.
She had a UTI, so they start treating her for that right away. They got her on some antipsychotic medication, and they were fantastic. And then you have to have a trial within 5 days. And they get an attorney, which is so great. My sister had to go speak on behalf. And it's just so nice that she's being protected. No, you can't get a horrible person get up there and just say horrible things about them without reason. It was very well done, very confident that she's being cared for. We are too. We're not trying to be mean. We just want her taken care of.
Now, does anyone have power of attorney at this point? So that's good.
That was already taken care of because she couldn't pay bills. I mean, it was clear early on. So my other sister's doing that. They deemed her needing to be in a full-time facility.
Okay.
And we have 90 days to do that, which is great. She ended up staying 33 days there, and we found a location. At the time, it was the extreme, if you will, ward for dementia Alzheimer's, the locked facility.
The memory care. It's called, just where they realize they have to keep a coded lock. And
you can't get in or out. And that was what she needed. We moved in. It was awful. She was very upset. The really extreme rage that may have been the UTI went away, but there is still a lot of anger, not understanding, very upset. We move her in, and to be honest, I was so thankful for my sisters.
Yeah, it is a break for them.
Because they still have...
Was she living alone?
Yes.
At that time, so...
And we all have young kids. All of our kids are about the same.
They're running back and forth.
Yes. It's that we call it the sandwich generation. If we didn't have young kids at home, they could have lived with one of us, or we're still taking care of kids. And we just think we thought this would come later. It wouldn't be at this time, even 10 years more, It was a relief, absolutely, to my sisters, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So she was there. They actually, when they got the medication figured out, she was much more pleasant. She was happier. She was content. We actually did a step down to the non-locked ward, and she went there for... I think 9 or 10 months. It was half the price, so that was good. She didn't like moving, but she was okay. And then about 9-10 months later, they said, okay, she has progressed. We need to go back to that locked ward, and that's where she is now. She is still living. She'll be 73 on May 12th, and yet has no idea who any of us are. When people ask how she is, she's very content.
She's not.
She is safe and she smiles. It's really hard because I can't call her anymore. The last few times I tried, she's either sitting on the phone or setting the phone down and she can't quite use the phone. So I go about twice a year and I see her then. And the last time we went, the physical therapist had come in at that time and we were just talking about her shoes because she needed some tennis shoes that were better. And we said, okay. And when we left, gave her hugs and left, she just said to her neighbor, the students were making fun of my shoes. So she taught, or she worked at the high school, and so I don't know if she's relating us to those students, but there was no connection. And it's so hard on my girls. They're 10 and 13. They have been so good. We talk about it. They hug her. They say, I love you. And they know that they're not going to know. She's not going to